I guess a big part of space exploration and the difference between manned or robotic exploration is actually inspiring the public. And while it's quite easy to do that with a person out there who's putting their life at risk, I guess sometimes it might get a little bit harder to feel that kind of empathy for a robot like the ones that are stuck on Mars at the moment. Do you have any kind of comments on how inspiring the public ties into what you're interested in, what you kind of do?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in recent times, what has been achieved with the Mars rovers, Spirit and Opportunity, has been incredible for research and captured people's imagination. More of these unmanned missions to other planets and moons seem like a logical and cost-effective way to explore the solar system. The Apollo program and putting the first man on the moon was a high point of public interest, and maybe the fervour will be reached again by putting a woman on Mars. So I guess Haritina needs to keep up the Mars training, and you never know, she might get there. But if we look at the last years of the manned shuttle missions, I think they generated less excitement than Spirit and Opportunity did on Mars in many ways. So as the audio-visual technology improves, a robot broadcasting from Europa or the rings of Saturn will be way more accessible to the masses than the fuzzy Apollo moon images that we got back.
Yeah, that's a really excellent point. But I guess on the other end of the stick, you kind of imagine if Phoenix had a human along with it, then it might not have got stuck.
Yeah, but how much more work does it cost to actually get a human? I mean, it's better just to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of things do you see in the future of space tourism specifically?
Well, space tourism will be an incredible adventure, and companies like Virgin Galactic will do well selling suborbital flights. They're already talking about going orbital in the future, and Bigelow Aerospace have designed space hotel modules and are already testing a mini prototype in orbit as we speak. But, once you've expended all that energy to reach orbit, it isn't that difficult, comparatively, to slingshot to the moon. I've heard Burt Rutan, the developer of Spaceship One, talk about that as a concept and something that he'd love to see happen in the future. And initially it's going to be only wealthy people that can afford to go. But as with every other technology, space will become a lot more accessible as technology matures. I believe we should encourage as many people to fly into space as we can. It's not just a personal indulgence like a trip to Disneyland or the wilds of Africa. It's about investing in the technology and leaving a legacy to ensure the survival of creatures on this planet.
Oh, it's a beautiful vision. I love it. I can't wait to see it come to fruition. I think it will. I guess it's a question of how much and how long we have to wait.
Yeah, obviously it's going to take a while. I mean, suborbital flights are going to take a while to organise and get reliable and safe. And then it's a whole nother huge leap to go orbital. But once you are orbital, you have got a lot of options.
So do you think the public will ultimately respond to it by kind of taking up these space flights and booking them all out and providing the kind of necessary capital and motivation to push the industry forward?
Sure. I mean, there are a lot of space people out there, and there are a lot of people that look up into the clear night sky and feel wonder and awe. And there are hundreds of people that have already booked with Virgin Galactic, and as their friends come back from space and tell them how fantastic it is, then I'm sure that'll motivate a lot of other people to buy a ticket as well. And maybe they'll start getting a sense of the bigger picture of things and will feel that it is something that they really want to support.
Yeah, it's beautiful. NASA's just started a similar process called kind of Countries Without Borders. The idea is that showing kids images from space shows different countries, but without showing the human kind of borders between them, and getting them to kind of empathize with a one world kind of approach to politics and learning, which is an idea I really, really like. I don't know how successful it is, but it's a cool idea. I know that much.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we are pretty bogged down with a lot of the dogma. I mean, humanity is at a defining point of its evolution. Dinosaurs were the dominant species on Earth for 160 million years, and they never developed the smarts to launch colonies into space, so they didn't have a backup plan if something significant or dramatic were to happen to their environment, which of course it did. Homo sapiens have only been around for 250,000 years, and we do have the technological capability to be a spacefaring species, but we're putting most of our available money into protecting territories and those borders that you're talking about and killing each other. If we put just a small percentage of our military budget into space technology, then maybe we will pass the evolutionary test and deserve to survive as a species. I believe it's the ultimate IQ test for a species to rise up out of their home planet's gravity well and to venture into the vastness of space.
Do you have any idea of numbers of people that have actually participated in the space tourism program to date?
So, yeah, there are a handful of people that have paid $20 or $30 million to go up to the space station and spend a week up in space. And there's hundreds of people more that have booked in with Virgin Galactic. But beyond that, it's still very much early days. But I think once Virgin start doing their regular weekly flights, that will inspire people to take action, and maybe instead of going to Hawaii or climb Mount Everest or whatever they were going to do, that they might put their efforts into going to space.
It's a pretty awesome alternative to a round-the-world trip, I think.
Yeah.
What role do you see your company playing in the future of private space exploration?
Rocketlab subsequently received a lot of international interest for the technology after our successful RT-1 launch. And we have been busy undertaking a variety of research and development contracts for clients in the US of A, Australia and New Zealand. And a key contract was one with the United States Office of Naval Research to study new rocket propulsion methods and fuels. And Rocketlab range of products have also been sold and shipped internationally. In particular, there's been interest in the company's high-temperature ablative coating, bulk molding compound, low-shock separation systems, and hybrid rocket fuel propellant. We had planned to follow up with a second RT-1 launch within a year, but unfortunately it wasn't as easy to secure a paying payload or a sponsor for the second launch as we would have liked. We got very close, but we got no cigar. But fortunately, contracts on other substantial international projects were secured, and the company is growing really nicely. A few months ago, I actually resigned as the director of Rocketlab due to other commitments and because the company is heading in a slightly different tangent to what was originally envisaged. But I'm pleased to have been able to support Rocketlab in its early years and hope that it will be the first of many New Zealand space technology companies.
Taking all bounds of politics and money off, what do you think tomorrow is going to look like?
Well, if we're talking about space technology over the next 100 years, there's going to be a tremendous convergence of technology. My parents' generation were lucky enough to be watching the epic Apollo program unfold, and they saw the moon landings and the giant leap that space technology underwent in just 10 years. But let's face it, very little has happened in manned spaceflight exploration since Eugene Cernan was the last man on the moon with Apollo 17 on December 14th, 1972. And whatever happened to the reasonable expectations of Arthur C. Clarke's 2001? Where are the space hotels and the moon base? At our current progress, we're over 30 years behind schedule where we should be. And then I think, back in 1994, I was lucky enough to be working in the internet industry in the early days. And I remember at the time, people were thinking it was just another fad, something for geeks, but not something that would affect them. And then, of course, the internet has changed so much in our day-to-day lives. Like the internet revolution, I feel that we're on the verge of an era where space tourism will open up a plethora of exciting new technologies, many we can't even imagine now. I mean, we wouldn't have imagined Facebook back in 1995. There are plans on the drawing board now for space hotels, orbital flights, moon bases, and trips to Mars and asteroids. And over the next 10 years, there will be huge advances in energy systems, environmental systems, communication systems, and new materials. So there can't help but be major spin-offs that will affect many areas of our lives, just as the Apollo era kickstarted many new technologies. So tomorrow looks pretty exciting.
It does indeed. I can't wait to have space hotels like the ones from Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator by Roald Dahl, full of vermicious knids and all sorts of other weird and wonderful beasties.
I think for a long time there hasn't been a private space industry, primarily because investors haven't really wanted to get behind and back space projects. They didn't really see it as a great way to get a good return on their investment. They saw it as highly risky, and as a result, not many people actually wanted to get in and support space endeavours. And for, since the 70s, 80s, and it was only really the 90s that stuff started to change in that area. And sidetracking a little bit, if we actually look at the people behind a lot of these private space projects, they're all internet geeks. So those internet geeks that are sitting at home watching Star Wars and Blade Runner and all those films, a lot of those people are the ones behind a lot of the great companies that are developing at the moment. So yeah, the investment problem really held things back. But because you've had these successful people that have come ready to put a lot of money on the table and they're excited about pursuing a space venture, that has opened up a lot of doors. And at the same time, you've had Peter Diamandis, who came up with the concept of developing a prize to try and inspire people to develop a suborbital reusable rocket vehicle. And that was a brilliant idea. In the same way that they had early aviation prizes, this suborbital prize really spurned a lot of people to try and think about things differently. And again, we had a guy from Microsoft, a co-founder from Microsoft, Paul Allen, that supported Burt Rutan's entry. And in the end, he was successful with that. And as a direct result, Virgin Galactic kicked off using that Burt Rutan technology. So there's been all sorts of different things that have come together. Certainly internet technology and computing power and new materials have really changed the way that engineers can look at space. So the time is right for us to really make some great advances. We've got the money, we've got the computing power to solve a lot of these really complex aeronautic problems, and we've got the materials, and just the general cost of doing things have come down. You don't have to be a superpower government to get into space now.
Thanks so much for being a part of this, Mark. We really, really do appreciate it, and I'm sure all our listeners do as well. And we'll look forward to following your progress and the progress of space tourism and space exploration in the near future, I guess.
Thank you very much.
And now, just to finish up, we've got to say thanks to all the people who have contributed to make this podcast possible. First off, a huge thanks to the New Zealand Science Media Centre for allowing us use of their recording equipment.
Thanks to the amazing composer Rian Sheehan
for the intro and outro music. Thanks to the Kiwi Space Foundation.
And thank you, World Space Week Association.